Hello there everyone. Today we're going to talk about the special units and the ranking in which I think they are the easiest to most difficult. Once again, as always, I will say spoilers in this video. There are unique enemies, that's about as far as I'm going to go. So here's your last opportunity to click out of this. If you thought I was going to talk about regular units, we are not. We're going to talk about certain units that appear at a certain level throughout the dungeon. So here's your last warning in 3, 2, 1. If you're still here, that's your fault. We're going to talk about the Squiffy Guest found in the Cove. We're going to talk about the Swine Skiver found in the Warrens. We're going to talk about the Virago found in the Weald. And we're going to talk about the Bone Bearer that is found in the Ruins. And just for your info, some things I took on this were what the enemy does for the enemy lineup, what they do to your lineup, those are kind of the two, how easy they are to kill, and then also just the generic feel and what compositions are good and not good against them. Now, let's get on to easiest to hardest. Easiest, Squiffy Guest. It's probably no surprise to you that the Squiffy Guest is indeed at the bottom of this. And the Squiffy Guest is more of a fun lore type thing than it really is a strong enemy to encounter within the Cove itself. Just to quickly go through its stats. It's unholy, which means the Crusader's already going to be pretty good against it. And I don't mind taking Crusaders into the Cove already, which just makes them even better against Squiffies. Their HP is 53, which is fairly tanky, but when you look at it, they have 0 protection, their speed's 8, which is semi-high, but which is really nothing out of the realms of an ordinary. Now, 53 HP, speed of 8, so mediocre speed, slightly on the higher end, but not really. HP it's decently buffed. You're not going to really one-shot this dude unless you probably do a mark comp or get like a crit on the unholy stuff with more unholy damage, so I'll give it credit there. And the resistances are kind of all over the place, but nothing particularly great about the Squiffy Guest's pure stat block. But what really makes the Squiffy Guest essentially suck, and I do mean suck, I'm not being polite, like there are harder regular enemies other than a Squiffy Guest. The accuracies, according to the wiki, is 88%. Let me say that again. You get 88 accuracy. That is worse than a maxed out leper. That's right. Squiffy Guests have worse accuracies than lepers. And this also goes on to the fact that the Squiffy Guest, like I said, more fun in lore than it really is fighting. Its attack, Maddening Shanty, will always focus the Jester and your party. This is probably, I think, the only character in the game that will specifically focus your character based on the class alone. If you get your Jester to a dodge of like 50, which is not hard by the way, they come with a natural 35 dodge. If you get your Jester to a dodge about 50, they have about a 38 accuracy to hit you. That is miserable. That is just absolutely terrible. So it's going to have about 1/3 chance to even attempt to stress that target. And then its really only big kicker is called Off Kilter Jig, where it gives everyone horror for a couple of rounds, but if you carry items, you can quickly kill off the Squiffy and then get rid of that. And that accuracy is 88% as well. So essentially you can always dodge this guy and like 2-shot him, so essentially he's not really that bad. And to finish this off, Maddening Shanty will move him to the very front row where you can smash the crap out of him, so even if you have bad row diversity, this guy will willingly offer himself into the death. So therefore, for all that combined, he is by far the worst special unit in terms of how hard they are. But in a fun way, if you do kill a Squiffy Guest with a Jester, you will get an achievement. Mine goes to 11. I thought you had to finale it. I might have for mine just for fun, but you can probably do like a regular Dirk Stab or something. But it's always fun to finale since this guy really doesn't offer much damage. Swine Skiver, medium. You might be surprised that I'm actually putting the Swine Skiver at medium, and I was too. When I was originally going to this, I was like, oh man, this guy is absolutely crazy, always ruins my day, he's gonna be at least probably the second or first hardest, and I found myself fighting them and I realized, no, not really actually. Let's go through the stats first. HP 49, once again, it's not extremely high, but you do get that 15% protection, which will definitely bump up that HP. And a speed of 9, right around that Squiffy Guest territory, just one slightly higher. But none of the resistances on a Swine Skiver are particularly high. You can actually use that to abuse them in terms of getting them continuously stunned, bleeding them. Yeah, you can somewhat blight them if you put on a blight trinket. But the biggest thing is actually to get them to move. You want to move them to the very first position, and we'll talk about their skills now and why you want to do that. So the most happy place that a Swine Skiver wants to sit is either 3 or 4. That is typically where it wants to be. It can exist in position 2. However, there is a possible chance it will Goring Flight. So that's why I said its happiest is 3 to 4. And the biggest thing people think of is the ability Cripple Them. That's probably the one that hurts the most. It has a good chunk of damage. Its crit chance isn't terrible. And its Blight can be pretty annoying. And it's also got a nasty debuff of -8 dodge and -6 speed. That's pretty brutal. So Cripple Them is really the only ability you got to worry about. And here's a couple of ways you can handle a Swine Skiver. Get a decent stun. If you get about a 160% stun chance, you're adding about a 75-80% chance to stun, which is really good. Or you can do my favorite strat. Use a Bounty Hunter, use an Occultist, anybody. But I prefer the Bounty Hunter. Here's why. You can Bounty Hunter the guy with Come Hither, pull him forward to either the first or second row, you dog bone on a Houndmaster, and then blammo. If you crit, that thing is gone one turn. It's Beast, which gets you that extra damage from the Houndmaster, and it's also Human, like most of the Warrens, which also gets you the extra damage from the Bounty Hunter next turn. So essentially, Swine Skivers with a Bounty Hunter and a Houndmaster will only ever probably live one turn. So due to the fact they can be so easily destroyed, is essentially why I put them at medium. There's a couple of characters who work really well, and that Mark strat is extremely good because its dodge isn't particularly high either. And another great thing is Goring Flight is a really weak ability, 4 to 7 damage, and once you force it to position 1, it's going to automatically do it. It can't use Spit to Roast, it can't use Cripple Them. So all it's going to do is keep running away. So even if you want to kill other people but keep pulling him to position 1 or 2, it might just keep Goring Flight, which also has an accuracy of only 93. So if you sit around 30 to 40 dodge, it's almost a 2/3 chance to half chance to hit you, which isn't particularly devastating. So for all those reasons, it's actually not that bad. And for most of the damage the Swine Skiver can do with Cripple Them, you can just heal it right off. So in the end, I really do think this is the 3rd hardest enemy. Bone Bearer, hard. Yes, the Bone Bearer. I thought this would be before the Swine Skiver, but then I really started to think about it. And the Bone Bearer without a DOT based individual, and it has to be Blight, which already limits your options. Now, for the most part, you're always going to probably have a Plague Doctor. The HP on the Bone Bearer, I will admit, is at 43, and it's got a speed of 7, and not the highest dodge, but it does have that 15% protection again, which gives it a pseudo more fair chance. Now, Bone Bearers will naturally sit in the back row though, so that will make certain things harder. Thank goodness its move resist is very low, so you can probably pull them to the front need be. And the sole reason why actually I put the Bone Bearer above the Swine Skiver is based on that party category. Because the Bone Bearer itself doesn't particularly do a lot of damage, but the Bone Bearer is an enabler. It's an enabler in the sense it's obviously got Unholy Rally, which is its special things where it can bring back 1 corpse to full HP. So if you never get a chance to kill a corpse, or if you don't DOT out a corpse, such as never make one, which you can also crit a corpse away, which you kind of have to hope for, you can find yourself in a 8, 10, 12 round long slugfest if you brought in a party that's decent in the ruins, minus the fact if you find yourself a Bone Bearer who sits in the 4th position or 3rd. I honestly think a 3rd position Bone Bearer is the worst, because if you bring someone like a Hellion, you can't even Iron Swan them, and if you do, if it bleeds, it's not going to bleed, so you're doing like not exactly a lot of damage either. The 3rd position is kind of a weird position. There's a couple of stuns that can hit there, but it's got a 245% stun resist, so you're not going to stun them, you're not going to bleed them. That's what I'm saying. If you don't have a move, it's just going to sit in the 3rd position. Now you can DOT out with a Plague Doctor or Plague Grenades. Here's what I will tell you. Because the Bone Bearer is an enabler, you will be able to eventually build that DOT up to 12 damage, 18 damage, right? And probably around the 18 DOT is dead that next turn. So let's say you get to 4 or 5 turns before the Bone Bearer dies. Guess what it's doing to all of his buddies? They're going to get 25% damage increase. And if that Bone Bearer decides to do Wicked Surge, it gives another 10 accuracy and 20% more damage. I'm sure all of you have at least once got crit shot by marksman or crossbowman skeleton, and I tell you what, it is one of the most painful things you can have happen if they get an accuracy and damage boost on top of their already big damage boost. For the collective party use the Bone Bearer has is why I think it's one of the most devastating ones, to be honest. Yes, most of you probably knew this was coming. I'm gonna have a small interlude here just to build up to it. Oh, I hate these things. Here we go. Hateful Virago, hardest. Yes, yes, the Hateful Virago is once again in the category of the Bone Bearer for the reason that it creates something different within the enemy party itself. The Hateful Virago has 55 HP, which is actually the highest already, which is frustrating. And then you get to that dodge. Oh, do you get to that dodge? That dodge is single-handedly one of the worst things you could ever face because guess what? It has a debuff resistance of 115%, which means decreasing its dodge via debuff ability is actually kind of hard, which means the only way you can really counter that dodge is through high accuracy, which you may not always have. And I'm not talking like 110 accuracy high, I'm talking like 130, 140 accuracy high. And that is difficult to get to without a Jester over multiple rounds. And let's just take a quick stroll through these resistances. Oh, 145% blight, don't worry about it. And then you look at the resistances, you go, oh, you can't stun it, you can't really blight it, the bleeds are iffy, the debuffs are lucky, and the move resist is, if you work for it, it should be easier. But who cares if you move a Hateful Virago? Because they can use everything everywhere. And guess what? Once again, as I said, it's an enabler. It's not that Hateful Viragos are particularly devastating their damage, trust me. Putrefying Breath with a crit, that's about 20 damage, you will feel that, that's no joke. The only saving grace might be that the Hateful Virago's abilities actually only hang out around maybe 98 to 100 accuracy, which means, 40, 45 dodge you might get every other turn hit, which is pretty good. But it's from death comes life ability that turns a corpse into a necrotic fungus. Now, you're thinking, oh, it's a necrotic fungus, how bad can it be? Like I said, if you played the game, it can be terrible. What does a necrotic fungus do, you ask? Well, it kind of sits there, lets you stress heal, which is nice. But you know what it doesn't do? It doesn't let you heal, which is terrible. Literally, any healing ability. Like, Vessels can't use Judgment, it heals you. Abominations can't transform because it heals you. Flagellants can't use Exsanguinate. So even damage abilities that would heal you, you can't use. So if you are like already hurting, and there's this stupid necrotic fungus out there, guess what? You're screwed. And also, they have 33 HP a pop, and they don't attack you, so it's not like you can't riposte it. You gotta kill 33 HP for you eventually to heal. That's kind of difficult to do. Due to the Hateful Virago just being so annoying to look at as it breathes on you, marks you for other enemies, and guess what its debuffs do? It decreases your accuracy. So remember when I said you need accuracy and the Hateful Virago's like, ha, now I minus 10 accuracy to my already extremely high dodge? It's a cyclical nightmare that makes you want to just scratch your eyeballs out. The best way I could probably describe when killing a Hateful Virago is probably mark strategies with high increase accuracy trinkets. And just pray. Because it does have a random 7% protection as well, so that HP is more like probably 62 to 63, which is even more. And you probably just hope you get 2 really good shots or 1 just absolutely devastating mark shot. It's got a speed of 10, if I didn't say that already, so it's going to probably outpace most of you. It's going to decrease your dodge and accuracy and set up for marked for death for those fungal scratchers and clawers. Absolutely one of the most brutal enemies on their own terms, and also how they synergize with their team within the wield. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you enjoyed this list. I think definitely the 1 and 4 are, I think, no-brainers. I think the Squiffy Guest is more of a joke than it is an actual enemy. And Viragos, every time I see one, I just want to start pounding my head on the table. And then the 2 in the middle, I always thought, I was like, man, I think I played the Ruins so much, I just naturally always had a good comp. But as I started to play a little more, and I started to get away from always having a Crusader or Plague Doctor in my party in the Ruins, I started realizing how difficult Bone Bearers can actually be. And even for Swine Skivers, as I said, even if you don't have that mark and pull comp, they can be stunned, they can be bled, and they can be just eventually pushed to position 1, where they really don't do all that much. And even if you do let them use Crippledom, as long as it doesn't like keep critting like multiple rounds in a row, if you have a Vessel, you can actually heal through the damage. Unlike the Virago once it makes a corpse come into a necrotic fungus. With all that being said, like I said, Squiffy Guest easiest, Swine Skiver number 3, Bone Bearer number 2, and Hateful Virago can go shove it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you agree with this list, rather than saying you agree, you can just cry with me about all the times you've missed on Viragos. Thank you so much for watching.